everyone, this is Sarah with the York County Library. Welcome. In today's Stay Creative video, we are going to be having some fun with watercolor. I really like watercolor. I find the medium to be very relaxing, and today I'm going to show you some fun ways to get some unique patterns out of your watercolor. So for watercolor projects, you're going to need, of course, some watercolor paints. I'm going to be using this little travel size of Winsor Newton watercolors today, but you can find watercolors at Dollar Tree, Dollar General. You can find them at Michael's. Here's a set from Michael's that I've used in previous videos. Has a lot of different colors in it. You're also going to need paintbrushes. In the video today, I'm going to be using this flat brush and this rounded tip brush. And you'll need some watercolor paper. So watercolor paper is usually just a little thicker, and it can hold the water very well. You're going to need a little cup to put some of your water in. You may want 2 glasses, one for clean water and one for dirty water. And you'll of course need a paper towel or something to dry your brushes off in between using them. For the experimental side of today's video, you are going to need some house salt. So this is just plain table salt. I just have it in this little syrup container because this is salt I use for crafts. And you're also going to need cling film. So I have plastic cling film here. If you don't have plastic cling film, you could always use something like plastic packaging on something that you've purchased, or if you have a plastic bag, you can use that as well. I like having something I can see through to see the patterns, but if you can't, then it's going to be more of a mystery and more of a surprise. To put some finishing touches on the things we make in the video today, I'm also going to be using some scissors to cut things down to size, to create pieces to put on cards, or to create bookmarks. And I also have some gel pens I'm going to use to go back into the piece to add some flair, some words. You could use anything that goes on top of the watercolor. You could always test out a small swatch to see if what you do have to write on top will go over the watercolor once it's dried. But I'm going to be using a white gel pen and a silver gel pen. But like I said, you could use different kinds of pens. You just want to make sure they're not water soluble, or if you are going to use them and they are water soluble, that your piece is completely dry. And I think that's it. So let's get into the video and see what I make with my watercolor experiments today. So I'm going to be taking this plastic film and putting some water on my brush, getting some watercolor and painting on the plastic. I'm going to put a couple of different colors in. I have my watercolor paper underneath and my paper towel ready. So now I'm going to flip it and press down. Because you can see through, you can see some of the patterns forming as you push and apply pressure. You could move the watercolor in different directions. You could lift the cling film up and print it in a different area. I'm using different motions to push the watercolor in different directions. And then when I am ready, I will pick up the cling film, and I have a pattern underneath. Now I'm taking some of the remaining paint and printing it around. I can reuse that if I'd like, and there's my result. So I'm going to flip it to the other side, which you may want to wait for it to dry, but I really wanted to try something a little different. So what I'm going to do is put some watercolor down first. I'm just overlapping it, but I'm getting a nice coat down. And while it's still wet, I am going to take my cling film, put on top, and move around the still wet watercolor. You can see the shapes that are being formed. Now when you pick it off, you have a pattern and a texture. So that is our cling film. Now I'm going to show you what you can do with salt. I'm going to put down a wash of blue, which got a little too wet for me, so I dried it off. Now I'm going to make the wash. I'm going to add some more so that it gets nice and dark. So I don't want to go too dark. What I'm going to be doing with the salt is sprinkling it on top. It creates an effect that kind of looks like snow. So I've decided to put some blue down to mimic the sky. So now I have my salt, put a little in my hand, then pinch some with my fingers and sprinkle it around. Now once you do that, you want to let it dry completely. I'm a little impatient, so I decided to get the salt off while it was still a little wet, which just creates a little bit of extra texture. But now you can see it looks like snow, or maybe stars. So now that I have my prepared paper, I'm going to cut off the edges with my scissors and use some of the gel pens that I have to add some flair. I'm going to be cutting this piece down into 2 pieces and making a bookmark. And I'm going to attempt to write "Let It Snow" on this piece. So here's my attempt at "Let It Snow" with some gel pens. And then I also have the bookmarks. This one I like. I took a silver gel pen and outlined some of the shapes. Okay, so I got a few interesting pieces out of our experimenting today. So with the salt, I was able to make this kind of stippled effect that looks like snow. So I used some silver gel pen to say "Let It Snow." I tried to write it at the bottom initially with the white gel pen, but it didn't quite work out. But there's that. And then with the cling film, I was able to get some very interesting designs. So I cut up that bigger piece into smaller pieces. I made this one into a bookmark by putting "Read" at the bottom. If I wanted to go a little further, I could do a little hole punch at the top and put some yarn or some ribbon through it. And then for this one, I went in with a silver gel pen and put an outline around some of those swirling shapes. And I really liked how that turned out. So friends, I hope that you found that very relaxing. I know sometimes it's hard to let go and just experiment with something, but I found it relaxing and I hope you did too. You may want to look up different kinds of ways you can play with watercolor and just see what you can create. So friends, I hope that you had fun and I hope I see you next week. So until then, remember to stay cool, stay safe, and stay creative, York County.